It began with silence. A silence so soft it felt like breath held by the hills, cupped in the palms of the valley. The village of Elaroon lay curled beside the rivers, bent like a sleeping animal. Roofs like folded wings, chimneys like still sentinels, all waited, as if the earth itself listened for something long forgotten. Then, one drop fell. It struck the brass bell on the chapel roof, with a sound like memory high and clear, echoing against cobblestone and moss. It dripped from window ledges like smoke. It pattered on the tiled roofs of the bakery, the bookbinder's shop, the tea house where lonely letters gathered dust. He had once tended the river as a boy, before the rains fell silent. What kind of world do you think this takes place in? Feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Also, please consider subscribing, and don't forget to tune in next time for another exciting episode. Thanks for watching. He sat on the porch with a woolen shawl draped over his knees and a carved walking stick shaped like a crane's neck. When he saw Mira, his eyes shone like wet bark. "You felt it, didn't you?" he asked before she even spoke. She nodded. He motioned her closer. "Sit, girl. Let me tell you the tale you've always carried in your bones." The rain fell softly around them, catching in the light of the lantern. 100 years ago, the rain sang not from clouds, but from the spaces between things. It sang from the pause between thunder and breath, from the hush after a heartbeat. It called the river by its true name, the name before time, before stone. But something happened. A silence was laid over it all. A forgetting, a curse. Some say a choice, say others. He leaned closer. But the rain does not forget. It waits, and when the time is right, when someone who remembers listens with an open heart, it returns. Myra's hands trembled. "Why now?" Thorn looked out toward the river, where the willows bowed low, because someone finally heard the first note. And so it begins that night. Mira could not sleep. The rain continued, not heavy, not ceasing, like a song that refused to end, always returning to its chorus. Her dreams were filled with water, ancient seas, mirrors of stars, silver threads unraveling from the sky. She awoke just before dawn to find the apricot tree blooming out of season against all reason. Each blossom carried a single drop of rain at its heart. Mira stepped outside and heard it clearly now. The rain's song, rising, not loud, not triumphant, but certain. It was only the beginning. The river was listening, and so was she. Children stood in doorways, arms outstretched. Dogs barked, and then went quiet. Old Mrs. London, blind since the last eclipse, stepped outside for the first time in 5 years, whispering, "I hear it." The lullaby. Inside the chapel, the bells began to swing. Gently, though no hands pulled the ropes, the rain struck their curves with notes like silver, and the village, without speaking, began to hum. It was not a song they had learned. It was a song they had forgotten, and yet, somehow, everyone knew the melody. Another followed, then another. Not a storm, not a rush, just a delicate prelude of a rain that had waited 100 years to return. Mira was the first to look up. She stood barefoot in the garden behind the old weaver's cottage, where wild mint crept between the stones and bluebells nodded in the early hush. The rain followed. The river remembers. The river had not sung in years. It had flowed, yes, sometimes gently, sometimes in hidden fury, but always mute. The villagers said it had grown tired, that something in it had been lost. Now, with every raindrop, something stirred beneath its surface. A ripple that hummed. An old boat, half swallowed by reeds, lifted slightly in its moor, as though remembering the days it once danced across the current. A heron stirred on its perch and tilted its head, listening. The wind, too, shifted, carrying not cold, but cadence. As Mira reached the bank, the rain grew bolder. Still not fierce, no. It was never fierce but deliberate, as if each drop knew the note it must strike. She knelt at the edge where the earth met water, her reflection blurred by the ripples. She placed her hand upon the river. It paused beneath her palm. Once, twice, Then came a whisper, not with words, but something deeper, threaded into marrow and memory. "We have waited. We have watched. And now we remember," she gasped. Not from fear, but from recognition. This was the voice from her dreams. She held a basket of lavender in one hand, the other resting on the rough bark of the apricot tree that hadn't borne fruit since her mother's passing. The drop landed on her cheek. It felt warm, like a kiss, then another on her wrist, and when she breathed in, it was as though the whole sky had been steeped in violets and smoke and lullabies. She whispered, "It's come back." No one had spoken of it in her lifetime. The old ones used to tell stories by the heart, always beginning the same way. There was a time when the rain did not fall in silence. It sang, and the river remembered its name. Most thought it folklore, a tale to soothe children when the fog rolled too thick or the fire cracked too loud. But Mira had believed it. Always. She ran down the garden path, skirts trailing like spilled ink, toward the riverbank where the willows wept. By noon, the rain had begun to shape the day. The waterkeeper's tale that night. Mira visited Old Thorn, the waterkeeper, who lived in a round stone house beneath the birch trees. "What do you think? How does this story make you feel?" The rain did not stop. It wove itself into the days and nights like a quiet companion, never drenching, never wild, but steady, insistent. It slipped between tree branches, etched silver onto windows, and tapped gently at the shutters, as though asking to be let in. The villagers began to speak in softer tones. They walked slower, eyes turned toward puddles, listening. Something unspoken had begun to change, and beneath it all, the river whispered. But this time, she was not watching the rain. Mira followed the river upstream past the familiar willows, past the millstone bridge, into the wild part of the forest where few ever ventured. The rain softened the forest in layers of pearl and mist. People stood in their doorways with hands on their hearts, whispering the strange music that rose from the stones and the trees in the breath between breaths. The rain answered with a rush of wings. Silver motes whirled around her, coalescing into a great bird, its feathers edged with light. It dipped its head toward her, eyes shining with gratitude. And in that instant, she knew what she had to do. With a final trill, the bird soared into the brightening sky, leaving behind a whisper of wind and the scent of wet stones. Taking a deep breath, Mira stepped forward. She reached out to touch the water, closed her eyes, and spoke the river's name. The world exploded in color and sound. Flowers sprouted along the banks. A deer emerged from the trees, ears pricked. A family of otters tumbled into the current. All around her, life thrummed with joy. The river surged upwards in greeting. The rain sang with bells and drums. And somewhere deep within the earth, something stirred, ancient and vast. The sky itself seemed to lean closer, colors deepening, clouds parting to reveal a breathtaking tapestry of stars. Mira laughed, tears streaming down her face. This was the language she had been born to speak. The rain was a song. The river was a friend. The mountains a story. And the stars themselves sang along, waiting for her to join their chorus. In the end, it was the forgetting that had been the curse. The forgetting of self, of nature, of the ancient magic woven into the very fabric of their world. But now, as Mira danced beneath the shimmering sky, she remembered, and in remembering, she woke the world from its slumber. Mira stood once more by the river's edge, the name burning softly on her tongue. She did not speak it, not yet. Names had to be offered, not used. She waited, and the river waited with her. Mushrooms glowed faintly beneath the ferns. Songbirds didn't sing, they simply listened. After hours, she found it. A clearing encircled by standing stones, worn smooth by time. In its center, a pool not part of the river, but fed by it. Its surface was unnaturally still, as if it were made of glass. She stepped forward, heart caught between awe and ache. And then she saw it again, the door of light glimmering faintly beneath the pool. As she knelt, the journal slipped open in her hand to a sketch of this very place, annotated with a single line, "Where the rain stands still, the river speaks in full." She closed her eyes, placed her hands on the earth beside the pool, and began to hum not any tune she knew, but one the rain had taught her. The pool began to glow. She was the rain. She fell from the sky in slow spirals, kissed the petals of moonflowers, danced down the cheeks of laughing children. She slipped through cracks in stone and ran along the mossy veins of trees. She tasted salt and fire, time and silence. And then she struck the river's surface. Everything went still. In that moment of impact, she saw it, a doorway beneath the water, not made of wood or stone but of light. She awoke just before dawn, heart pounding. The apricot tree had grown taller overnight. Mira returned each morning to the same bend in the river, where the willows leaned low like guardians of old dreams. The water had grown clearer, with the rain so clear that it seemed to vanish in places, revealing polished stones, half-buried shells, and the ghostly glimmer of fish too old for nets. Shapes bloomed within it, visions made of mist and memory. She saw a time long past when Elaroon was a thriving city of music and fountains, where rain was welcomed with song and the river was worshipped like a living spirit. She saw the people, joyful and unafraid, singing with the storm, weaving rain into cloth and story. Then a shadow, a severing, a figure cloaked in black pouring ink into the river's mouth, a curse that silenced the song, a name being torn from the lips of the rain itself. The vision flickered. Then Mira saw herself, standing on the edge of the water, arms lifted, voice ringing like a bell. The rain fell like stars, and the river sang. She opened her eyes, trembling. The vision faded, but one word remained, echoing inside her. Celoria. The name. The river's true name. I knew this day would come, he said. Inside were pages yellowed, ink faded, drawings and symbols. It was his grandmother's journal once, a waterkeeper herself in the time before silence fell. The rain carries memory. One passage read. Each drop holds a note of the song, but it can only be heard when one listens not with ears, but with the soul. Another entry chilled her. A girl will come who speaks to the rain. When the river shows her its heart, the curse may break but only if she remembers the forgotten name. Mira looked up. What name? Thorn shook his head. It was lost. That's why the silence came. Names have power, child. And this one was stolen hidden beneath sorrow, buried in the mouth of the mountain. Mira closed the journal slowly. I want to find it. One morning, as dawn melted into mist, Mira leaned over the river to study her reflection. But what looked back was not quite her. The face was hers but younger and older, eyes the same shade of moss green, but filled with a knowledge Mira did not yet possess. Her reflection wore a necklace of water lilies, and around her, the rain didn't fall, it rose. She blinked. The vision dissolved, replaced once again by the ripple of her real reflection. She placed a hand on the water and whispered, "Who are you?" The river replied not with words, but with a sudden shimmer that drifted outward like a sigh. And deep beneath the surface, a shape moved slow, circular, ancient. It left behind the scent of jasmine. Thorn's journal that afternoon. Mira returned to old Thorn. He greeted her with a box, cedar wood, worn smooth with age, and tied shut with a blue ribbon. The river's gift that night. Mira dreamed again. The hidden pool the next morning with a journal in hand and Thorn's blessing in her heart. What the river showed her. The water rose not outward, but upward, as though drawn by the song. The sky begins to change that night. The rain began to shift. It shimmered now, with a faint silver glow. Then, when the first sliver of dawn touched the hills, she began to hum again. This time, the sound stronger, clearer. The village of Elaroon had begun to change, not with haste, not with thunder, but like morning light slipping between leaves, subtle and sure. Doors that had remained shut for years now stood ajar. Each stone bore markings, worn symbols, barely visible beneath the lichen and moss. Thorn had helped her trace them in the journal, matching them to old waterkeeper. Their steps were lighter, their shoulders straighter. In the days that followed, the changes in Elora and the people deepened. The river sang, and the land listened. His name was Rorik, and he traveled from a distant city where the river had long since been forgotten. She dreamed. She stood by the river with her mother. But it was empty, cracked, and parched, as if drained of life. Yet the river light shone brightest here, pulling Myra toward it. She knew, without being told, that the river had found its way back to the people who had forgotten it. Relief flooded her. She had done what she could. Now it was up to them. Would they remember? The river would wait, as it had waited for her. For all of them. They had only to listen. As she neared, she heard a voice like dry leaves rustling. Startled, she drew back. The voice spoke again. "Who comes to me?" "It is I," Myra answered, stepping closer. "I am here because the river sent me." The voice sighed, a sound of ages gone by. "So the song reaches even here. Then perhaps it is time I, too, remembered." And with that, the pool rippled, not with water, but with light. The river was returning to itself, and with it, memories stirred in the dust. "I am the memory of rain," the river said. "In the city, they buried me beneath cobblestones and steel. They built towers where my tributaries flowed, and I became a whisper in the dark." Myra felt the river's sorrow as her own. She wanted to reach out, to touch the shimmering surface, but she remembered the waterkeeper's words. Only remembrance can open the way. So she searched for what the river was remembering. She looked up at the sky. There, a single cloud floated, shaped like a bird taking flight. It mirrored the shape of one of the city's few remaining weirs, the only reminder of how the river had once flowed. Without hesitation, Myra stepped forward and pressed her palms to the light, tracing the shape she saw above. The pool reacted as if alive. Tendrils of light reached for her, coiling around her arms, but she held firm, focusing on the shape in the sky, on the memories she sensed beneath. With a final surge of power, she pulled her hands away. The light exploded upward, bursting through the cracks in the stones, and racing toward the distant city. Her mother smiled, then vanished. In her place stood Celoria, the forgotten waterkeeper. "The river needs your help," the waterkeeper said. "She is dying again, choked by the city's sins." But Thorn Myra knew she had to go. She and Rolnik set out together, along with two others, Torin, a young man with the strength of an ox in his arms, and Liana, whose wisdom lay in her gentle eyes. 2 days into their journey, they came upon a roadblock. A low stone wall had been erected across the path. It was unmarked, yet somehow Myra knew it had been placed there for her. "What does it mean?" she asked the river, and the river sang back. "Only remembrance can open the way." Taking a deep breath, Myra stepped into the wall. It was cool against her skin. She traced its rough surface and felt the river thrumming beneath. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Remember." The stones parted, revealing a narrow passage between them. He, too, had heard the river's song and had come to see what it awakened. Unlike the villagers, he carried no burden of grief or loss. His eyes, when he looked upon the river, were sharp with avarice. He saw only potential, power waiting to be harnessed, wealth waiting to be seized. While Myra saw only a gift, Rorik saw a curse. The river's song reminded him of the city's drowned past, of a time when the river there had run free, bringing life and bounty to all who lived near it, until greed and war had choked its flow and buried its memory. In the meadow, wildflowers bloomed in colors never seen before. The river reflected the sky, not just in its depths, but in its flow. Gone was the sluggish current, replaced by eddies and currents that mirrored the clouds above. Sun and moon found new paths through the trees, painting the forest floor in shifting patterns of light and shade. Even the animals seemed transformed. The shyest field mouse met Myra at the edge of the path, unafraid, and nestled in the palm of her hand. A family of deer grazed by a house, their coats gleaming like polished mahogany. One evening, a lone owl landed on the apricot tree, regarding her with intelligent, golden eyes. "It remembers, too," Thorn said beside her. "The river remembers." Together, they formed a phrase. "When the rain sings and the river listens, the voice of the world will rise." Myra stepped into the center of the ring. The hidden pool shimmered with memory. She knelt, pressed both palms into the wet earth, and whispered, "I am here. I remember." The rain grew still around her. Then, from the trees, came a rustling soft and synchronized. Figures stepped forward. The villagers, one by one. They entered the circle, silent and solemn. Old Thorn, the baker's daughter, the widow with trembling hands, even the children, barefoot and white. None had been called. None had been told. But they had heard it, the invitation in the rain. Mira looked at them and knew. This was the moment. She stood, faced the river, and spoke the names. Windows once clouded by dust gleamed faintly in the rain. The chapel bells rang on their own now, not in alarm, but as if keeping time with a rhythm deeper than memory. The river no longer whispered. It hummed a low, steady song that seemed to rise from the roots of things. And Myra Mira waited with the name Saloria. She carried it in her chest like a glowing coal, careful not to speak it, not even in dreams. Not yet, for some names are not meant to be spoken alone. On the 7th morning since the rain began, Mira returned to the standing stones, journal in hand, voice steady as a heartbeat. The wind stopped. The rain paused in the air, suspended crystalline, as if time itself had held its breath. Then movement. The pool at the center of the stone circle burst upward, not in violence, but in revelation. Light spilled from it. Like liquid silver, the air shimmered. The earth pulsed beneath their feet, and from the pool, a voice emerged, not human, not ancient, but elemental. It echoed through their bones. "We are the river. We are the rain. We remember." The trees bowed. The stones trembled. The rain resumed. But now it carried harmony notes, layered upon notes, like the overlapping voices of an unseen choir. The villagers wept, not from sorrow, but from remembering. Songs long buried returned to their lips. They began to hum, then to sing, not in unison, but in harmony, each voice a thread, each note a drop. Mira stood in the center, eyes closed, arms open, and the river sank back, as if awakened from a dream. The villagers turned to go home. One day, a stranger came to alert. That night, as Mira slept, the river light spilled from her window. They walked in silence until the forest opened into a clearing. Before them lay a wide, shallow pool. From her vantage point, Mira could see the light weaving through the buildings, touching down in the very center of the city. The rain had changed. Where once it felt like misty song, it now moved with intention. It curved around Myra's shoulders as she walked. It shimmered over leaves like script. The villagers began calling it the listening rain. And Myra no longer simply the girl who listened had become the one the rain listened to. The villagers gathered again, this time with offerings, small things. An old flute, a carved spoon, a letter never sent, things with meaning, things with story. They placed them in the water, and the pool shimmered. At the chamber's heart stood a pedestal, upon which rested a stone bowl, filled with unmoving water. Not a scream, a chord, low, deep, holy. The silence cracked like ice. Above, on the surface, the villagers heard it, a rush, a lifting, a release. The rain brightened. The river surged with color. Flowers opened along the banks in seconds. The villagers had gathered again, not in worry or fear, but in celebration. As the flames danced before them, she began her tale, her voice strong and clear, carrying the weight of her journey and the triumph of their rebirth. The rain fell softly around them, no longer a mournful dirge, but a gentle lullaby, a testament to the unbroken spirit that lived within them all. For the rain kept falling, not in silence, but in song. The old boat at the reeds burst into bloom vines and petals growing from its frame. And from the pool in the circle of stones, Mira rose, eyes closed, hair threaded with light, the silver spiral still glowing on her palm. She had returned, and the silence was gone. Above it hovered a single drop of rain, frozen in place, refusing to fall. This was the curse. Mira stepped forward. At the bend, she stopped. Before her lay a clearing, bathed in the sudden warmth of late afternoon sun. His eyes twinkled, despite the lines etched deep into his face. "The rain will speak to you always, child," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "But remember, sometimes the most important stories are the ones we tell each other." Mira looked out at the smiling faces, at the rain-kissed fields, and the chattering birds. She knew he was right. She had listened to the river, and in doing so had saved them all. But now it was time to share her story so that they, too, could remember. Because memories, like seeds, have a way of taking root and blossoming into songs that echo through generations. In its center flowed the River Salona, no longer choked with weeds, but brimming with life. Dragonflies chased each other across its surface, drinking from flowers that lined its banks. A family of otters swam past, followed by two sleek salmon leaping upstream. As Mira stood there watching, the villagers emerged from the trees. Their faces were alight with joy and relief. One of the young women, Elara, ran forward. "You did it!" she cried, throwing her arms around Mira. "We can sing again!" The sound swelled, vibrant and strong, carrying on the breeze through the leaves. It was a song of thanks, of remembrance, and of hope. And Mira joined them, her voice mingling with theirs, her heart soaring. Her footsteps made no sound. She reached out to the drop. The mark on her hand glowed, and the drop trembled. She whispered not words, but memory. Her mother's laughter as she washed apricots in the rain. Thorn's voice teaching her the river's early hums. The feeling of the village singing together again. And with that, she said, "Fall." The drop fell. Mira stepped into its center. The rain gathered above, hovering like a crown of pearls. She spoke the river's name once more. This time, the earth responded. The stones vibrated. The pool deepened its bottom, falling away to reveal a spiral staircase made of pale, glowing stone. A path beneath the river. Mira turned to the villagers. Some wept, others smiled. She met Thorn's gaze. He pressed his walking stick into her hands. "For light," he said softly, "and for listening." Then she stepped down. She spent her days walking the river's edge, her fingers trailing along the bark of rain-fed trees, her ears tuned to the music beneath the surface. Water dripped, not from above, but from the sides, curling inward like tendrils. The air was thick with echoes not of sound, but of feeling. Each step echoed like memory. Mira passed carvings etched into the stone scenes of old. People dancing in the rain, the river blessing crops, children being taught to listen with their feet on the earth. Then came silence, not absence of sound, but a wall of it. Cold. The tunnel narrowed. The mark on her palm pulsed. And there, at the end of the corridor, was the door. The one she'd seen in the water. It stood alone in a hollow of stone. Vines petrified around its frame, a keyhole in the shape of a teardrop. At its center, the same spiral that now lived on her hand. She reached out. The rain above ground paused. Her fingers met the spiral. The door opened inward. The river no longer hid its voice from her. It spoke in symbols, reflections, and hushes between the ripples. But one morning, as the clouds parted briefly to reveal a pale, watching sun, it sent her a message that changed everything. The reflection of the door, it happened just past dawn. Mira was by the bend near the hollow willow, where the water slowed to a mirror. He sipped from a chipped mug and stared into the hearth's quiet flames. "I feared this day might come," he murmured. "The curse that silenced the rain, it didn't begin here. It was born beneath the river, in a place no map shows." He opened a heavy book, bound in dark leather. The pages crackled like dry leaves. He turned to a drawing, a door, the same one Mira had seen. Beneath it, written in the old tongue, "The vein of silence. It has said that below the river lies a path carved in the bones of the earth. Those who walk it face, not monsters, but truths, the kind that wound deeper than any blade." Mira looked down at the silver spiral on her hand. "I have to go." Thorn nodded. "Then you must carry more than courage. You must carry memory. She leaned over to see if the glowing fish would return, and there it was. Not a fish. Not her face. Not even light a door. Again. But this time, clearer. Stone carved with vines. A keyhole in the shape of a teardrop. A figure standing before it hooded in rain, unmoving, and a whisper from the river. The silence was sealed. The key was broken, but part of it lives in you. Mira touched the surface. Her palm burned with cold fire. A mark began to form on her skin. A tiny spiral, like a whirlpool, etched in silver light. Thorn's warning, old Thorn, watched her closely as she explained what she saw. The river opens that evening. Mira returned to the pool in the circle of stones. The passage below it was not dark. The walls shimmered faintly with bioluminescent moss. The chamber of silence, the air inside was still not empty, but held like a breath never exhaled. The breaking of the curse the moment it touched the water. A sound filled the chamber. Not a roar. Mira slid down the path, each step making the sound of remembered laughter. When the last notes faded away, Old Thorn approached her. That night, under a sky shimmering with stars, Mira sat by the fire with her friends. Mira woke to rain. It wasn't the drumming on roofs or the scent of wet earth. It was the feeling of countless fingertips tracing paths down her skin. She sat up, gasping. The memory of water, cold against her palms. Had she dreamed it? The rain? The village elders believed that dreams brought messages from ancestors, lovers, and spirits. But this dream, it felt too real, too much like homecoming. Mira searched for the source of the sound, but it seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. She slipped out of bed and moved to the window. But when she pushed aside the shutters, the sky was clear, the air bright. No rain, no clouds, no wind, no whisper of the storm she had just felt. She hurried outside, calling for Nana. But the courtyard was empty. The laundry hung limp. The vegetables drooped. Even the fountain in the center had gone dry. Mira ran a finger down its thirsty stone lip. Where was everyone? And where was the rain? The girl who went below Mira wasn't sure how long she'd stood there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. Then the ground beneath her feet shifted. She looked down to see a single raindrop trembling on the flagstone. More followed, splattering on the dry earth, hissing as they hit the hot stone. Then, hesitantly, she put her hand out to catch one. It landed on her palm, cool and tingling. Mira closed her eyes, leaning into the sensation. She could feel the water's journey from sky to stone to skin. Each step a tiny revelation. And then the strangest thing. She felt the raindrop move within her, course through her, like a pulse beat echoing in her own veins. And suddenly, she knew. The rain had come home. But where had it been? And why was it here now? She set off toward the river, each step taking her deeper into the sound. The air grew cooler, the light dimmer, the sky itself seeming to press closer, anxious to pour out its song. She could hear the rain falling on the leaves overhead, the tall branches making a canopy that hid the sky, but also sheltered whatever lay beyond. And then she saw it, the river, or what remained of it. The water was gone, leaving behind only cracked mud and the faint scent of damp. What had been a lifeline to the people of Eleron was now little more than a trickle, barely enough to sustain the village, let alone the surrounding farmlands. Mira dropped to her knees beside it, cupping the dirt. Tears stung her eyes, blurring the image of the river that ran through her memories. A waterway so wide and strong that her father had navigated it in a boat, trading fish and stories with passing cloud ships. Mira traced the line of the riverbed with a finger, feeling the pulse quicken beneath her touch. Here, the ground vibrated with a low hum, like a sleeping creature stirring beneath the earth. She closed her eyes, letting the vibration fill her, become her. And then she heard it, a voice, not from above, but from below. "Help me," it whispered, thin and reedy, yet filled with an ancient strength. "Bring me the rain." Mira looked around wildly, but there was nothing but the dry riverbed and the silent woods. "Who's there?" The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "I am here," Mira answered, her voice echoing strangely. I will bring you the rain. The split in the river. Mira returned to the village that night, but sleep wouldn't come. She tossed, turning thoughts of the river thundering in her ears. The rain outside had become a steady drumming, and the rhythmic sound calmed her racing heart. By dawn, she was awake and dressed and headed toward the river. With her were two men from the village, Kellen and Thorn, both experienced trackers who volunteered to help. Mira approached the riverbed cautiously, expecting to find it unchanged, but something was different. A fissure ran through the middle of the dry ground, splitting it cleanly in two, whispering to each other. The men exchanged uneasy glances. Mira took a deep breath and stepped into the crack. The ground shuddered beneath her, then settled, as if welcoming her. The walls of the crevice were smooth and slick, like polished stone. Ahead, the tunnel narrowed until Mira could go no further. She pressed her back flat against the wall and squeezed through, emerging into darkness. She gasped, scrambling to her feet. But then she realized the darkness wasn't pitch black. There was a glow somewhere ahead, beckoning her forward. She followed it, reaching out to steady herself on the uneven path. And then she saw it. Light streamed from a hole in the ceiling, illuminating a chamber beneath the river. Inside, water bubbled and churned, forming a pool so still it looked like polished glass. Steam rose from it, carrying the scent of rain and ozone and something else, something ancient and wild. Mira stared at the pool, transfixed. It called to her, urging her closer, and as she approached, the water rippled. An image formed within its depths, swirling and coalescing into a face, weathered, wise, sad, yet filled with a power that took Mira's breath away. Their eyes met and Mira felt herself drawn into the pool. She reached out to touch the water, bracing for icy cold. But what she felt was warmth, not burning, but comforting, enveloping her, cradling her. And in that moment, she knew. This was the source, the spirit of the river, the keeper of Ilaran's past, present, and future. The rain had led her here. But why? And how could she help? The waterkeeper Mira awoke on the bank of the river with a start. She was soaked to the bone and shivering violently. Beside her, she saw the two men from the village huddled in the grass, fast asleep. She sat up, realizing the chill had nothing to do with the weather. In fact, the sky was gray with clouds, and the wind carried the smell of an approaching storm. Mira glanced at the men and shook her head slightly. She didn't wake them, but she didn't need to. She could feel their relief at being away from the cave, from the oppressive weight of the underground river. Mira struggled to her feet, wringing water from her hair. Her clothes stuck to her like a second skin. She needed to get back to the village, get changed, and prepare for the coming storm. But before she could take a step, a voice stopped her. You shouldn't have left, it whispered, echoing in her ears. Startled, Mira spun around. But when she turned back to the dark mouth of the cave, she saw nothing but rocks and dirt and a tumbling stream. Yet the voice had come from inside, and it wasn't the spirit of the river. It was something else, something that had been waiting for her. Something powerful and angry and utterly alone. Mira hesitated. Should she go back? The voice seemed to urge her forward, promising answers, but also danger. Before she could make a decision, the ground beneath her feet rumbled. Rocks tumbled from the cliff face, and the riverbed cracked open, revealing more tunnels leading into the earth. A hand shot out, clawing at the air. The voice screamed, "Help me!" Mira didn't think. She acted, dropping to her knees and crawling into the cave. The ground gave way beneath her and she fell, tumbling into the darkness. The last thing she saw before everything went black was a pair of luminous green eyes staring back at her from the gloom. Mira woke up on the ground, the taste of dirt and river water in her mouth. She sat up, blinking against the dim light filtering through the cracks in the ceiling. Groaning, she looked around. She was in the same cavern where she'd woken up the night before, except now the air thrummed with energy, the very ground vibrating beneath her, in front of her. The river flowed freely once more, sparkling and bubbling over smooth stones. And in the center of it all, sat the woman whose eyes she'd seen in her dream. Her skin weathered and lined like ancient bark, her hair white as foam, her gaze intense and knowing. Mira couldn't help but stare. There was something about the woman, something in the set of her shoulders, the curve of her spine, the strength in her hands, that commanded respect, that demanded attention. She was like a willow bending to the wind, yet rooted deep in the earth, unshakable, enduring. And as Mira watched, mesmerized, the woman raised her head and turned her luminous green eyes toward her. "You are the girl who went below," she said, her voice like the murmur of the river itself. "And since you have returned, I must tell you who I am." The woman paused, then continued, "I am the spirit of this river, the keeper of these lands, the protector of Ella, and you, child, are the water keeper's heir." Hello, friends. Welcome to another exciting chapter. The rain had woven itself into the breath of it fell not in droplets, but in threads of memory spooling slowly through art, over broken fountains, across carvings that blinked once more in the light. Our protagonist, Mira, is walking through the streets of this newly awakened city, which has been stuck in a state of stasis for many years. There are overgrown vines and trees creeping up stone buildings. The iconic crystal fountain is starting to flow once more, and the carvings along the walls are coming alive. Notice the one on the left, almost as if the rain itself is giving life to these figures. Ivy climbed its walls, its windows, like blind eyes. This story is amazing, because it shows how even in the darkest times, hope can endure. Mira closed the door behind her, pushing back the gloom. Moonlight filtered through grimy window panes, illuminating dust motes, dancing in the still air. She's grown accustomed to solitude, but now that she's hearing sounds and experiencing emotions she hasn't felt in years, she's unsure how to react. She crouched beside the fallen stool, breathing deeply to quell the tremors in her chest. All she can do is stare in terror as this mysterious figure enters the room. She needed a light. Her hand trembled as she struck a match, its flame a defiant spark against the encroaching darkness. Who is this woman, and how does she know so much about Mira's past? "Come," she said, gesturing to the wheel. She has found a guide who can help her navigate the mysteries of her past, and it seems like music is going to be a big part of that journey. Let us spin the threads of your memories together. The threads of memory spun by the hearth fire, carrying tales of laughter, love, and life. With each turn of the wheel, Mira felt a piece of her past unravel, revealing truths that had been hidden for generations. Mira hesitated, her fear momentarily eclipsing the flicker of hope the woman's words had ignited. But as she met the woman's unwavering gaze, she saw not judgment, only understanding. Slowly, tentatively, she approached the spinning wheel. The woman's touch was surprisingly firm as she guided Mira's hand. "This is not just a wheel," she said, her voice soft yet resonant. "It is a loom. It is a bridge between past and present." The wheel word, a rhythmic counterpoint to the pounding of Mira's heart. "It needs your song," the woman whispered, her eyes shining with an otherworldly light. "Your song will be our thread." The woman's words echoed in Mira's mind. Song. That was the key she had sensed all along. The key that could unlock the secrets of her past, of her family, of the city. With a lamp in hand, she faced the stairs, her knuckles white against its worn surface. A creak. Footsteps. The doorknob rattled. Myra's breath hitched. She wanted to call out, but her voice failed her. The door swung inward, silhouetting a figure framed in the darkness beyond. Startled, Mira gasped, the lamp flaring precariously. The flame sputtered, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the wall. Mira's eyes, wide with fear, locked onto the newcomer. The rain had ceased its song outside, leaving a pregnant silence in its wake. Memory stirred within these four walls, whispering of a time before the silence, before the city's slumber. The woman's face was lined with time, her eyes filled with a lifetime of stories. She regarded Mira with a gentle curiosity, her gaze unwavering. Myra, still shaken, managed to stammer, "Who are you?" The woman's lips curved into a knowing smile. "I am the keeper of this house," she said, her voice a soothing balm in the silence that had stretched for so long. But more than that, I am a part of this house, woven into its very being as the rain is woven into the fabric of the sky. In the corner, a loom stood draped in cobwebs, its wooden frame sturdy, its shuttle missing. Beside it, a half-finished tapestry lay spread, depicting scenes of life before the long night. Mira traced the vibrant threads, feeling a pang of longing for a past she had never known. The silence pressed in, heavy and suffocating, amplifying the tick of a clock somewhere in the house. Time, she realized, was a relentless tide, ebbing and flowing in the absence of sound. It was a tide she had resisted for so long. For what purpose? To preserve a silence that had become a tomb. And when that hope is rekindled, it can bring about incredible change. Smoke curled from its chimney, a silent plea for solace. That was Mira's home. Or rather, it was the home she remembered from fragments of dreams, from half-forgotten stories spun by the hearth. The city was stirring. The silence that had held it for centuries was unraveling like a dream remembered just before waking. The streets are empty, yet alive. The very stones hummed beneath her feet, echoing with the rhythm of returning life. The melody rose, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth and the taste of freedom. A creak on the stairs, a cough, the shuffle of feet. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a captive bird. Was she truly not alone in this house of echoes? Fear coiled in her stomach, sharp and icy, threatening to consume her. But she stood her ground. She would not flee. She would not let the silence claim her. The city lay hushed behind her, but before her, the valley unfurled like a sleeping giant, waiting to awaken. The path was strewn with pebbles that sang beneath her steps, each one a tiny drumbeat in the symphony of return. With every step, the melody grew, swelling in her chest until it echoed in her throat. The music urged her onward. She couldn't hold it back. It burst from her lips, mingling with the pebble song. The notes danced on the wind, weaving through the trees and over the sleeping hills. They carried her message, carried her hope, carried the promise of a new dawn. Here at the plaza's heart, the great crystal willow stood bathed in rain. For so long it had wept silent tears, its crystal branches heavy with sorrow. But now its face was lifted, its leaves shimmered, catching the light and scattering it like diamonds. Music filled the air. It pulsed from the ground, from the trees, from the reborn fountains. Even the buildings seemed to hum with awakening joy. Mira closed her eyes, swaying to the song, and Mira walked at its center no longer, just a girl who listened. She had become the one who was heard. Let's take a moment to appreciate the art. The illustrations are absolutely beautiful. Now let's get into the story. The music swells as Mira approaches the central plaza. Now we know the crystal willow is important because it's here in the plaza. It's the center of the city. And when it's sad or when it's dying, the whole city suffers. But now it seems to be thriving and happy because of the rain. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the rain-washed sky with hues of hope, Mira made her way to the eastern gate. And there in the valley, cradled by the hills and hidden from Siluria's watchful gaze, nestled the cottage. She's finally leaving Siluria and going back home. And the city is so peaceful and joyful that it sends her off with a blessing. With the music, the rainlight fades inside the cottage. Shadows deepened as night crept in. And then she heard it. The story isn't just about hope. It's also about fear and facing your fears head-on. Mira has spent years isolated in a silent city. The lamp Mira stumbled back, knocking over a stool. The clatter echoed, mocking her sudden fear. Mira is so frightened that she forgets to be rational. Who are you? Slowly, hesitantly, the figure stepped into the room, the lamplight revealing not an intruder, but a woman. Finally, Mira gets an answer, but it only raises more questions. A lifetime in threads. The woman beckoned toward a corner where an old spinning wheel sat shrouded in cobwebs. It looks like Mira's journey is far from over. As the night deepened, the rain resumed its gentle drumming on the cottage roof. No longer a lullaby of sorrow, but a celebration of return. What secrets will Mira uncover about her past? And what role will music play in her destiny? Stay tuned to find out. Thank you for watching. This story was inspired by a place, a feeling, and a book. I'll tell you about them at the end. So let's begin. No longer a storm or a season. It was now a voice, constant and tender, like the hum a mother leaves behind after singing her child to sleep. And with it came change. Elaroon was no longer just a village. It had become a vessel. The rain did not stop. It softened, yes, into a hush that laced every leaf, every rooftop tile, every winding path between homes, but it remained. It lingered, an arc of memory and promise. The villagers gathered again, not out of worry, but anticipation. She looked different. Pebbles and spirals on doorsteps, ferns curling in shapes that mirrored the glyphs from Myra's journal, raindrops on windows, forming lines that resembled forgotten alphabets. And those who were ready, they began writing songs in the margins of their old ledgers. Now I promised I'd tell you about the inspiration for this story. First, there's a place. It's a small town in Wales called Butu's Y Coed, which means the meeting place of the woods. I visited a few years ago, and I could feel how alive the land is with history and magic. It's almost as if the trees themselves are listening. Second, there's a feeling, that deep knowing that even when the skies are gray, the sun still shines, and even when the world feels silent, you are never truly alone. Third, there's a book, and here it is, one of my favorites, The Winter King by Bernard Cornwell. It's a part of his Warlord Chronicles series. If you've never read it, let me tell you, the ending is pure magic. I'm actually rereading it right now, and I plan to share more about it soon. Anyway, these three came together in my mind, and somehow this story poured out of me. So I hope it finds you well. And if you have a story that's been pouring out of you, I encourage you to write it. Oh, and here's a little bonus. There's also a song. It's a demo I recorded a while ago. Maybe one day I'll release it properly. But for now, here's a snippet. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, keep writing. Baking bread and patterns, remembered from dreams. Repairing tools that had broken decades ago, not for use, but because they missed them. Even the children began asking questions. They couldn't explain. Where does the sky go when it is lonely? Do feathers dream of flying again? What does a river write when it curls around a stone? The rain did not answer directly. It simply listened back, not in shape or height or age, but in light. It was shaped like a raindrop, made of glass and clouded silver, suspended from nothing, floating just above the well. The sky was clear, but the rain still fell soft, like the pages of an unread book. She looked toward the horizon, and there it was. The forest wrapped in fog, the tower, faint in the distance, and the blue flame, flickering like a heartbeat in waiting. The feather in her journal hummed. The spiral on her palm warmed. She whispered, "I hear you." And far off, as if through time and mist, the rain answered, "Then come." The river remembers, but the sky has stories too. Mira approached. She touched it. It didn't ring in sound. It rang in memory. For a moment, every person in the village remembered the same thing. A night they had once cried beneath the stars. A word they had longed to say, but couldn't. A song their mother once hummed while weaving. The first time they truly felt seen. The bell glowed, then went still. From that day forward, it became known as the rain bell. It only rang when someone was ready to remember. It moved through breath, through heartbeats, through the rhythm of footsteps and the way the wind leaned into the trees. To some, it sang of childhood's long-forgotten muddy rivers, warm bread, lullabies with no lyrics. To others, it offered names of ancestors, of past selves, of futures waiting quietly behind the veil of time. And to Mira, it offered a vision. A forest wrapped in fog, a hill with no path, a tower made of sound, a single blue flame flickering atop it waiting. The rain whispered, "There is more." Rain shimmered on her shoulders like a mantle. The gold feather in her journal pulsed faintly beneath her cloak. The spiral on her palm now moved slowly, turning like a compass, drawn to an unseen current. Children whispered. She walked where the rain began. Thorn took her hand without a word. His cane glowed silver at the tip, just for a moment. "Did it remember us?" he asked. Mira nodded. It never forgot Myra's return. When Myra stepped back across the rain bridge, it did not dissolve behind her. This time, the villagers came, not to watch, but to join. They brought no tools, no instruments, no intentions of changing the rain. They came to listen. Mira spoke quietly. "The rain holds stories we've buried. Some are sad, some are bright, some are still unfinished, but all of them want to be heard." She placed a feather in the center. The rain gathered around it in a spiral, and then the listening began. The first listening circle at twilight. Mira stood in the center of the stone circle, where once she had first heard the river hum. What the rain spoke, it didn't speak in words. In the days that followed, the rain began leaving messages, not in writing, not carved or drawn, but in arrangement. The rain bell. One morning, the villagers awoke to find a bell hanging in the center of El Arun. No one had placed it there. The path opens that evening. Mira climbed the hill above the river, and so Mira journeyed forth. The rain walked with her, whispering tales of what would be. Now, the moment has come for us to embark on a brand new adventure, and who better to guide us than our favorite intrepid explorer, Mira? That's right, and now let's turn our attention to the tale that unfolds before us. After taking a brief hiatus to focus on our upcoming move, we're back with more original content. Sleep still, clinging to her eyes, she slipped down the ladder from her room in the bell tower and stepped onto the wet cobblestones. The rain seemed to sing of memories, stories from ages past, whispering on the breeze. One was Finn, his brown hair plastered to his forehead with rain. The air grew cooler, the trees thicker, the light dimmer. The familiar songs of El Arun faded behind them, replaced by the rustle of unseen wings and the murmur of leaves in some unknown tongue. Though the sky was overcast, Mira felt a strange peace settle over her. This was the place she had been called to, the place where she could finally understand the whispers of the rain. Beside him, tall and watchful, was Alana, her green cloak blending with the woods beyond. Roots and vines parted for their passage, revealing a moss-lined path leading deeper into the mist. Besides, she had a feeling that the sky wouldn't be too pleased with her refusal. Ahead, they spotted a clearing bathed in an ethereal glow. It was a lonely journey, but Mira was far from alone. The forest spirits became her companions. The deer with eyes like polished amber, the squirrels that chattered secrets in the trees, the rabbits that hopped across her path, their fur the color of fallen leaves. Even the dragonflies seemed to dance for her, their wings shimmering like stained glass in the dappled sunlight. Days turned into weeks, filled with lessons and challenges. The forest had taught her the language of the world, and she was eager to use her newfound knowledge to help others and protect the balance of nature. For Mira knew now that the song of the rain was not just a melody, it was a way of life. With each passing day, she felt herself becoming one with the whisper wood, its joys and sorrows echoing in her own heart. Yet the song of the rain remained elusive, always present, yet never fully revealed. Mira learned of the ancient magic that wove the fabric of the world, of the balance between light and dark, life and death. She delved into the mysteries of the elements, discovering the language of the wind, the secrets held in flowing water, and the wisdom whispered by the trees. Not unkind, but unyielding. "So the sky has sent you." The voice belonged to a woman who emerged from behind a moss-covered boulder. Her skin was the color of bark, her hair a tangle of roots and vines. The song of the rain was not something to be learned, it was something to be lived. She realized that her journey had always been about more than just finding a mystical source of water. It was about discovering her place in the grand tapestry of the world, about embracing the challenges and sorrows of existence, and finding strength in the bonds of friendship and love. Her eyes, deep pools of starlight, seemed to hold the wisdom of ages past. She began to explore the wider world beyond the whisperwood, seeking to understand the interconnectedness of all living things. She traveled to distant lands, encountering wondrous creatures and magical places, all the while carrying the song of the rain in her heart. A dryad, one of the tree spirits, bound to the forest by ancient magic, In its center flowed a stream of pure white water, shimmering even in the dim light. Sunlight, perhaps, struggling to pierce the canopy above. She had no answer, but she had a question. Will you teach me, or must I seek the answer on my own? The dryad studied her. Then a flicker of amusement crossed her ancient eyes. Very well, she said. But do not think this will be easy. The Song of the Rain is not a simple one to learn. Are you sure you are ready, Mira? Or maybe, just maybe, tears from the sky itself. Strange flowers bloomed beside them, petals the color of twilight and moonlight, glowing softly in the dim light. Mira reached out to touch one, and the flower glowed brighter, then faded back to its silvery hue. At the sight of Mira, Finn ran forward, splashing in puddles. You came, he said, breathless. I almost thought you'd changed your mind. Why would I change my mind? Mira asked, surprised. Finn shrugged. You know, all that talk about the sky and the river and the Song of Rain? I've come to learn the Song of the Rain. The dryad regarded her for a long moment. Many seek the Song of the Rain, she said at last. But few are worthy. What makes you think you are different? I thought maybe you decided it wasn't real. No one doubts the rain when it drums on their window, she replied, smiling. Come, we must be going. But today was no day for tales of old. Today, Mira had a path to follow. We know you've missed our fantastical tales, and we've missed bringing them to you. So let's dive right in. Beyond lay the Whisperwood, a place of ancient trees and untold secrets, shrouded in perpetual mist. It was said that within the Whisperwood lay the source of the river rain, the very heart of the sky, and the sky wanted Mira to find it. As we begin, let's take a moment to appreciate the artwork that brings Mira and her world to life. Old Man Hemlock tending his glowing mushroom patch, children chasing giggling sprites under the eaves, Mrs. Buckleberry weaving a basket from moonlight and dew. Everywhere, life went about its day, heedless of the whispers of the sky. Only Mira carried that song within her. Mira woke to rain, the rhythm drumming on rooftops, a lullaby the world knew by heart. The sky had spoken to her in dreams, guiding her steps to the eastern gate, where the wall of Elaroon ended and the wild world began. As she walked, she saw the familiar sights of her village waking. When she reached the eastern gate, two figures stood waiting, silhouetted against the mist. As they stepped through the gate, the world changed. The forest welcomed them, not with open arms, but with cautious curiosity. After what felt like hours, the trees began to thin. As Mira stepped into the clearing, a voice echoed through the trees. I am Mira, she said, offering her hand. Mira hesitated. How could she explain the dreams that had guided her, the whispers that had called to her soul? I must be, Mira replied, her voice firm despite the tremor in her heart. She had come too far to turn back now. And so it was that Mira began her training under the watchful gaze of the dryad. Throughout it all, the Song of the Rain echoed in her heart, a constant reminder of the path she had chosen. As her understanding of the forest grew, so did her confidence. Then one day, as Mira sat meditating by the river rain, the answer came to her in a flash of insight. With this newfound understanding, Mira's journey took a new direction, and so Mira continued her journey, guided by the whispers of the rain, forever changed by her experiences in the whisper. The rain had changed, not in its pattern, but as the echo that remained after it sang. The flame feather song, the journal was warm in her hands, the feather now silver blue, with fire at its tip no longer rested silently between the pages. It sang, not aloud, but in pulses, in memory, in flickers that opened forgotten doors. Rivers flowed in all directions, but none pulled her, none pushed. They simply offered, and in her journal, beside the glowing feather, new words had appeared. You are not the singer. You are not the song. Some of us have been doing this for over 20 years, and every Friday we release a new short for free for you to watch online. Our stories explore a wide range of emotions and themes, from heartwarming to thought-provoking and everything in between. All of our shorts are carefully crafted to transport you to different worlds and make you feel something deeply. We hope our stories will stay with you long after you finish watching them, inspiring you to be a better version of yourself and to embrace the beauty of life. You are the space between where both can become each other. She closed the journal, touched the spiral on her palm. We can't wait to share more stories with you. So sit back, relax, and let our stories take you on a journey. Thank you for being part of our community and for watching our videos. We are so grateful for your support, and we wouldn't be able to do what we love without you. Please don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on new releases. We look forward to seeing you next Friday. And smiled, because the world was listening now. On the riverbanks, she saw moments. Her mother dancing alone by candlelight, her father whispering to bees, a version of herself who had never stopped drawing the rain. Each image flickered, and each one bowed to her, as if saying, "You have chosen the path where nothing is lost, only remembered differently." The flame beneath the lake at the center of this water world. There was a second tower, smaller, not made of song, but of stillness. Inside it, a flame blue and silent. Mira approached. The flame rose and wrapped around her, but did not burn. It merged, and in that moment, she felt everything. The first rain that ever fell, the last word of an old tree before it fell asleep, the lullabies sung by clouds to mountains, the laughter of rivers in spring. And at the center of it all, her own name, spoken not as sound, but as belonging. As Mira walked beneath the trees, small flames sparked along the path, not burning, not scalding, just waking. Blossoms glowed faintly. Mushrooms blinked. Stones rearranged themselves into spirals of welcome. And above, clouds shifted in slow rhythm, like the breath of something ancient and content, remembering who you are, who you want to be, and who you have always been. It is about a girl who went up a tower to listen to the rain and came down singing with it. In the comments below, please share what brings you home. What do you return to again and again? What makes you sing? For many of us, I think it's stories. Stories bring us home to ourselves, to our deepest selves, to our truest desires, and to the echoes of our past that still call to us. Stories have the power to connect us to something larger than ourselves and help us to understand our place in the world. It's why we tell them, why we seek them out, and why they change us, not in its weight. They simply looked at her and remembered not who she had been, but who they had forgotten they could be. Thorn touched her shoulder. His silver cane hummed. It did not burn. It glowed, and with that glow, the air thick. Voices rose, not in shouting, not in performance, but in remembrance. The baker told of the dream she once had as a child, to shape bread that sounded like laughter. The elder spoke of a stream that used to hum beneath the orchard, and how he missed its music. A boy whispered the name of a sister who had never been born, but who lived in the stories he told as stuffed fox. And Mira listened, eyes wide, heart open, as the fire grew brighter with every shared truth. It was not heat. It was recognition. "You brought it back," he said. Mira nodded. "And it brought something back in me." The sky was open, the clouds scattered, and the water. It reflected two moons, one that hung in the sky, one that glowed beneath the surface. She knelt by the edge. The feather stirred in her pocket. A voice rose from the water, not in speech, but in music. "There is a world beneath your memory, one where time does not pass, but gathers. Shall we show you?" Mira closed her eyes and stepped into the reflection. That evening, they gathered again in the listening circle. This time, not to hear the rain, but to speak to it, but in its presence. Now, when it touched stone, the stone whispered. When it touched trees, the leaves leaned in. When it touched skin, it remembered who you were. Mira descended from the tower not as the girl who had heard the rain, returned alone when she returned to the village. No one spoke. The story fire Mira planted the flame feather in the center of the circle. The lake that dreamed later that night. Mira walked alone to the lake above the village. The mirror of rivers, she found herself standing in a place of no sky, only water, and soft starlight. The echo that remains when Mira returned from the lake Morning had not yet come, but the sky had changed color, a quiet blue, like breath before a song. This is a tale about finding home, not in a place, but in a kind of remembering. Stories are also what bring us together here. Every week, we are storytellers. We make original animated shorts and feature-length films. If you're looking for more ways to connect with us, you can find us on social media. Our community team would love to meet you. Hey there, do you remember this? Yet, what if I told you that these sounds, when truly heard, could carry stories, emotions, and even magic? Welcome to my channel. Today, we're delving into a realm where rain whispers secrets, winds carry songs, and even the rustle of leaves echoes tales of old. How about this? Or even this? Well, today we're diving into something different, something more profound. We're talking about the art of listening. Guided by the whispering rain, she ventures out into the world, seeking remnants of the forgotten melodies. Each melody she finds resonates with a particular emotion that the people have forgotten. There's a song for love, one for joy, courage, hope, and even despair. As she pieces together these fragmented tunes, Mira realizes that to truly bring them back, she must first awaken the emotions they represent within herself. It recognizes in her the spark of the long-forgotten melody. When she sings, Ileron feels a stirring within its ancient being. Their spirits, which had been dulled by years of silence, now soar. It's been waiting for someone to revive the songs, to reawaken the melody of existence. And now that Mira has almost succeeded, they laugh, they dance, they cry, tears of joy and sorrow, releasing emotions they didn't even know they were holding on to. Mountains become her shoulders, rivers flow through her veins, and the whispering wind becomes her voice. It speaks to Mira, thanking her for rekindling the dying songs and reminding her of the importance of listening. The river had sung, the sky had given flame, and she had simply listened back. All you need to do is listen, with an open heart, a curious mind, and a spirit ready to dance to the tunes of existence. You, too, can become a weaver of melodies, a conduit of emotions, and a finder of magic in the everyday. The journal's final page. One quiet morning, Mira opened her journal. There was only one page left, blank. The golden silver feather floated up and rested against it. Then words appeared, not written, but revealed. There are stories no rain can carry. There are songs no sky can hold. They live in the and you, little flame, are the bridge. Beneath the words, the spiral on her palm mirrored itself, opening like a flower, and then the feather gently dissolved, leaving behind a single glowing seed, the planting of the flame. She walked to the center of the village, where the rain bell hung. Beneath it, she knelt and placed the seed in the earth. No ceremony, no announcement, only presence. And as her fingers pressed it into the soil, a shimmer spread, soft blue light curling through roots, stone, and memory. A single stem rose, then leaves, then petals, then a flame. Quiet, flickering, alive. The villagers gathered. No one spoke, but one by one, they knelt and touched the earth around it. In silence, they offered stories. In silence, the flower listened. The final rain that night, the rain changed again. It fell not from the sky, but from within, from wells of memory, from places long closed, from the hearts of those who had forgotten how to feel without fear. And Elaroon did not shield itself. Doors were opened, windows unlocked, faces turned upward, not to resist, but to receive. And Mira stood beneath it all, palms open, spiral glowing, as if to say, yes, let it fall, let it become the river that sings forever. The river never stopped humming, but now it hummed in harmony with trees, with bells, with the low breath of clouds moving across the night. And deep in its current, the old songs slept no longer. They rose, carried by children's voices, echoed in the patterns of birds, held in the way the fire danced on rainy nights. And every so often, when the mist was just right, a girl with a journal and a memory of flame could be seen walking beside it, listening, not for answers, but for the next becoming, for the land. Like the people had also forgotten how to listen, the spirit had slumbered, believing the songs to be lost forever. She's been reconnecting the people and the land, bridging the gap between them. The rain falls harder now, not just as water from the sky, but as a baptism of sorts, washing away the years of silence and apathy. It's a celebration, a joyous occasion that the songs are returning. But Myra's determination and unwavering belief in the power of music rekindles a flame within Alarin itself. She becomes the rain listener, the one who listens to the whispers carried by the rain and shares them with the people. In the way Mira stood, not as a girl, not as a messenger, but as something new. The awakening of Elarun no longer whispered, it spoke, in bread that tasted like forgotten stories, in wind chimes that rang only when someone remembered love, in children who drew with ink made from mist and wildflowers. Even the trees bowed differently now, as if recognizing something ancient had been returned to them. Through her, the land speaks, the rain sings, and the people remember who they are, where they belong, and the melodies that make life worth living. Her journey takes her through landscapes that mirror the state of the world. Gray skies hang heavy over the land, and the people she meets seem trapped in a silent film, going through the motions of life but unable to express their true emotions. You see, our world is full of sounds, some pleasant, some not so much. This isn't just a story, it's an invitation to awaken the dormant listener within each of us. The people pause in their monotonous routines, drawn to the sound of her voice. They gather around her, and as they listen to the songs, a transformation occurs. The grayness that shrouded their faces begins to lift, revealing the vibrant colors of their emotions. The mountains echo with her songs, the rivers hum along, and the trees sway in time with the melodies. It's as if the very essence of the land is awakening from a deep slumber. The animals, too, respond to the songs. Birds join in with their sweet melodies, their chirps and tweets harmonizing with Mira's voice. The deer dance in the clearings, their movements graceful and rhythmic. Even the insects seem to sense the resurgence of the songs. Dragonflies hover, creating intricate patterns in the air, while crickets chirp out their own melodies from the undergrowth. The rain joins in, amplifying her voice and carrying the melodies deeper into the land. Our journey begins with a young woman named Mira. Communities begin to gather, drawn together by the melodies. They laugh, they cry, they dance, and in doing so, they reconnect with the land, with themselves, and with each other. Every morning when Mira wakes up, she hears a gentle knock, a persistent rapping at her window. The land itself sang songs of joy and the people danced to its tunes. But somewhere along the way, they strayed from the path, forgetting the melodies that connected them to the land and to each other. Over time, the songs faded and the colors of life became muted. The people lived, but they didn't truly exist. Their days were filled with tasks and routines, and their nights were quiet, devoid of the lullabies that once rocked their souls. And when she opens it, she sees a sight that fills her with wonder. Rain, not just any rain, mind you, but rain that carries whispers, secrets that dance on the droplets and fall to the ground. This rain isn't just water from the sky, it's a messenger, a bearer of stories that have been waiting to be heard. Mira, whose name echoes with the rhythm of falling rain, finds herself in a world where the very essence of existence seems to be fading away. People have forgotten the language of their land, their songs, their connection to the natural world. The vibrant hues of emotion have dulled, replaced by a monotonous gray. Life has turned into a mere routine, devoid of the melody that makes it rich and beautiful. Yet amidst this fading world, there's a flicker of hope. As Mira listens to these whispers, she begins to unravel a tale of sorrow, of a time when the world was filled with music, laughter, and vibrant emotions. Determined to revive the dying songs, Mira embarks on a quest. Throughout her travels, Mira discovers fragments of the lost songs. So she begins to sing, And as her voice rings out, something magical happens. It's a slow process, but as Mira continues to travel and sing, more and more people are drawn to the songs. And then there's Elaroon. The ancient spirit of the land has been watching Mira's journey with keen interest. As Mira's influence spreads, Elaroon feels its essence begin to stir. As the final song rises, it's not just the natural world that responds. The people, too, feel a profound shift. But it doesn't end there. Elaroon, the spirit of the land, is moved by Mira's dedication. Elaroon appears before Mira in a form that mirrors the land it embodies. In that moment, Mira realizes she hasn't just been reviving the songs. From that day forward, Mira's role changes. She's no longer just a traveler. The rain wasn't just falling anymore, it was rising too. In the petals that opened to drink it, in the songs, villagers now sang without fear. They called Mira the rain listener. But she knew she was only part of the whole. So remember, dear friends, the world is brimming with stories, waiting to be heard, emotions, longing to be felt, and magic whispering on the breeze.